I'm the community pastor here at Crossroads, Oxford. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I can't see very well. It's not just because the lights are blinding me, but it's also because I have to wear contacts. Without contacts or glasses, I probably couldn't see past the third row here. It'd be all blurry. I couldn't really process what's going on back there. And there's probably people in here that are also just like me, wearing glasses or contacts in order to help them see. They're using lenses to process information and to be better understand the world around them. And those are actual physical lenses that we use, but we also use a lot of different types of lenses in order to process information. Lenses that are like, I'm an American. I found that out when I went to Canada last week, and I realized very quickly I have a very American lens on. It happened when I just came up to my waitress and said, "Hey, where's the restroom?" And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I was just like, "The restroom?" And she's like, "I don't know what that word is." And I said, "Bathroom?" And she's like, "I got nothing." I'm like, and I looked around and I realized they call it a washroom here. It was very quickly that I was like, oh, I have a lens on that's processing information just a little bit differently than those around me. I also have lens on of being a daughter, a wife, a mother, a woman. We have lenses on that we don't choose that are on us, and there's lenses that actually we can put on and process information intentionally through those lenses. And there's 4 lenses that I have put on over the years that have helped me create a life that I love, make a giant impact in those around me, in the world around me, and just really have a fulfilling life. And so I thought I'd talk about those 4 lenses. So lens number 1, the lens of a designer. Some of you may not know, but I haven't always been a pastor. In fact, I've only been a pastor for 2 years. I went to school for design, and I was in publishing. I designed books. And eventually I was always a part of parachurch ministries, but eventually I changed the equation and made my vocation be a pastor here at Crossroads. But I remember when Artie and I were first dating, we were at dinner one time and he said to me, "Hey, I need to talk to you about something." And I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of serious. What's he going to say? And he said, "I've been thinking, and I think maybe God might ask me to be a pastor someday. How do you feel about that?" And I kid you not, I say to him, "Well, we should break up now. I have no interest in that." And the joke's on him because I'm not the pastor wife, he is. So God did some work in me, and obviously I had some church hurt, and I eventually did become a pastor because I felt like that's how I was wired to make an impact in the world. But the lens of a designer is actually very easy for me. And so some of you might be thinking, I can't put on a lens of a designer. That takes training, or she went to school for that, so it's easy for her. How am I supposed to do that? And I think it depends on how you define what a designer is. And so let me define that for you just real quick. I think what you probably think is a designer is someone that has inspirational ideas, and they're just really creative. They sit down in a cube with a computer, and they design, and inspiration comes out into the computer. And that's actually not true. That's kind of more what an artist is, but a designer is actually a creative problem solver. They're expert problem solvers. In fact, if you're a designer and someone has not defined the problem for you, you're going to have extreme difficulty designing a solution. And designers hate that. Designers hate being given a problem and giving a project without a defined problem. And so you can put on the lens of designer. In fact, I think it will help you make some decisions in designing a life that you love. So how do you do that? 1, you have to figure out what is a problem in your life and what is a constraint. Those are 2 different things that you need to know the difference between in your life. Problem is something that you have the ability to change in your life. It's a problem that you want changed in your life. It's not something you like, and you have the ability to make adjustments. Constraints are not that. Constraints are something that you are born with, are circumstances out of your control. And what I see a lot of people get stuck in is they try to start designing problems that are actually constraints, things that they really shouldn't be trying to solve at all, that they actually can't even move the needle on. When I was in book design, I would never go to my boss and say, "Hey, you know that author that already wrote that book that I'm designing? I don't like that author. Just switch authors, design it, have somebody else write it, and then I'll design it." That was a constraint, right? The book has been written, author has been chosen. I was not going to be designing that solution. What I was given, though, was a problem to design, and that's what I focused on. And there's a process that designers walk through that actually help make the design solution visible. And so I think if you could walk through that, you can figure out how to design some of your problems, not your constraints, the best way possible. So walking through the design process, I would do first, I would define the problem really well, figure out exactly what is the problem I'm trying to solve. Then I would do a ton of research. Who is my competition? What are they doing? What are they designing? What is my audience that I want to make a purchase? What are they doing and why would they make a purchase there? What's distracting them? What's my price point? What is my, what are some constraints? What are some options? I would research all kinds of things about the project that I'm designing. And you can do that about your problems too. Maybe the problem that you want to design is I'm in significant financial debt. And you can start researching what are some levers that I can pull and research about how do I get out of that. So maybe it's like, what are the best credit cards with the lowest interest? What are the bank loans that I can help get me out of this? What are some people that have been in debt that can help guide me out of debt? What are some classes I could take? These are all ways of researching. And then a designer would do the third step, which is sketch. Sketching, I'd always have a notebook with me. I would never let anybody see it because they would be awful ideas. They're just ideas. There was no wrong idea when you're in the sketching phase. You're just trying to get all of the ideas out of you and onto the piece of paper. And that's the same for designing a solution to your problems. It's trying to get all the ideas out. What are all my options? What are some ways I can design a solution to help me get out of the problem that I'm in? And then you do something else. Now, because I'm a Christian, I do a step in here that not everybody does, but it's presenting my designs to God. I tell him what I think is the best sketch. What is the best idea that I created? What is the one that I really think can help me out of the problem I am in, that's the best design solution? I present it to him. Now, he has the ability to say three things, right? Yes, no, and just silence. And so what does that look like for me? God speaks to me kind of quietly, sometimes through other people, sometimes through ideas that pop in my head, sometimes thoughts that pop in my head. So I listen and I pray about it, and sometimes he's silent. If he's saying yes or if he's silent, the next step is to print. Press print on that idea, on that design. Because what I see people doing is they get stuck. They're waiting and waiting, and they never press print. So there's two other mistakes I see people do when they put on the lens of the designer and they're designing problems in their life. One is that there's really only one design, and they get stuck in the sketch cycle where they're just sketching and sketching and sketching and trying to find that one perfect design. And I'm just going to tell you, save you a lot of time, there's never just one. There's so many solutions to this design problem. I remember designing books, and I would go through sketch after sketch, and eventually I would just have to pick one. And it's never just the one. I knew that there's probably 20, 30 designs that would have been great solutions to that book cover, but I had to pick one, you know? And so I think if we don't do that, if we don't realize that there's many solutions, we get stuck in that phase. The second thing I see that people do is they think that design solution will work for them forever. And that's not true either. I would design books eventually that would be very successful, would win awards, that I was very proud of. And I'm telling you what, in 4 years, that same book would come back on my desk for a redesign every single time. And it would drive me a little insane. I just did this book. Why am I doing this again? And it's because the world is changing so fast. What worked before doesn't work right now. The problems are different now. And I think the Bible speaks a lot to that. In Isaiah 43:18-19, it's one of my favorite verses. It says, "Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." What I love about that verse is that, to me, it tells me that God is a designer, and he's designing solutions to problems. And he's telling you not to look at the old design. Look at what's coming. What's the new design coming down? And constantly be redesigning and taking new ground. And so that's what we've done in our lives, me and Artie's lives. We have been redesigning our life, and it might look kind of haphazard from the outside where we've jumped different careers and different places we've lived, but it actually has a ton of intention behind it, a ton of thought and prayer and sketching. And it is because we're trying to solve the problem of how do we have a life that makes a big impact? How do we design a life that we love? And you can do that too. Maybe there's a problem in your life that you can put the designer lens on and try to solve. And I'd love to be able to walk through each and every one of you. So anytime you want to talk about this more, I'd love to do that. The second lens I'm going to talk about today is the lens of a farmer. Now, if you live in Oxford, not everybody here is living in Oxford. If you live in Oxford, you know a farmer because we are surrounded by farmland. There's probably a farmer in this room today. I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure there is. I have friends that are farmers, and I've been watching and paying attention, and I think putting on a lens of a farmer will actually help. I actually have done it, and I feel like it's helped my life make a bigger impact, an outsized impact. And the way that I did that is because you have to think about either being a farmer in life or a miner, and I'm going to explain what those two mean. Farmers, they are thinking about outsized impact. They're thinking about more than just feeding their family. They are thinking long term. They're planting seeds that they may not see a harvest for months. And then for miners, what they're thinking about is they're coming into caves and mines, and they're just extracting resources, taking what they need and leaving. And I see that play out in people's lives. I see it play out in the way they think about the world and what their purpose here is. And it plays out the most that I've seen in funerals. Unfortunately, I've gone to more funerals than I'd like in my lifetime. And I think it does display that attitude of either having the lens of a farmer and a miner on when I go to funerals. And that plays out in this way. When I'm at a funeral, if that person that we're celebrating their life was having the lens of a farmer on during their life, I would hear stories about their life of impact. I would hear about how much they and what they've done in their lifetime has made a difference to the lives of people there. I would hear about just the life change that happened all the way around. And honestly, their funerals are just big. There's a ton of people there because of the impact that they've had in their life. Now, conversely, in the funerals that I've been to that were more about the miner, I would hear more stories about remember when, or the glory days, or just the things that they owned would be talked about. It was actually pretty sad for me to hear that because I think it's a huge miss, because not only does it help everybody around you, but putting on the lens of a farmer is actually going to make us happier too, and I'll prove that. In Luke 6:38, it says, "Give, and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount you give back." God is telling us that the amount that you give is the amount that you give back, that He's going to return even more than what you give out. And that is true in our life, and it's true in science. There's a quote from Liz Dunn, researched by social psychologists and her colleagues, appearing in the Journal of Science, and it says, "People's sense of happiness is greater when they spend relatively more on others than on themselves." In one survey, over 600 U.S. citizens, Dunn and her colleagues found that spending money on others predicted greater happiness, whereas spending money on oneself did not. And this pattern was found across all income levels. I think that's really important, that last sentence, across all income levels, because you could think that, man, if you're really wealthy and you're giving to people more than maybe you're spending on yourself, well, you're happy because you've got this resource back here, you've got this bank, and it doesn't hurt so much. But the science is telling us that even if it's the last penny that you give, even if it's really hurting you and you're going without, it makes you happier. And so that's what we have done here. Me and Artie, when we moved to Oxford, we decided that we wanted to farm at Miami. This is the ground that we want to develop, and we did it very intentionally. We thought of Miami University because it is a place where people all over the world are coming to be educated. They're young, they're wet cement. And what if we use this ground to develop people? What happens then? Well, they move out, right? They go in 4 years, they leave, and they go across the nation. And those seeds that we developed and helped are then planted in all these other places, and maybe some of those will also be building into their community. And that's the hope, that's the dream. That's why we picked Miami. And you can do it too. You can put the lens of a farmer on. So some ideas, it might not be college for you. Maybe that's not the ground you want to take. But maybe it is your neighborhood. Maybe it's the city of Oxford. How can you leave this place better than you found it? I know I wouldn't be here today without a college kid saying, I'm going to farm in Beaver Creek, Ohio, and a little teenage twerp named Lisa Buchanan, actually. And she built into my life and made an impact. And I'm forever thankful for that. And for families, if you have kids, I know that a lot of us will think, my kids, those are the one I'm farming. And yes, that's true. It's the most important farm for you. But your kids need to see that your legacy is bigger than them. They need to see that you are thinking beyond just them. And I'm so thankful that I have parents that are teachers that have instilled that into me. The third lens that I have put on that I encourage you to is the lens of a guide. About a month ago, we went on vacation out west, and we decided to put a part of that vacation to go whitewater rafting with our 3 kids. Now, we told our kids we were going to do this. They agreed. I just want to make that very clear. They agreed when we bought the tickets. But as we got closer to the trip, the couple days before, I started to hear concerns. I started to hear worries and not sure if they want to do this. The day before, I started to hear, I'm really scared. Tears were starting to form on 2 of our kids. And then the day of, I'm pretty sure they thought they were going to die. Like, you are killing us today, and I want new parents. That's basically what we heard. And so we did what all great parents do, and we made them. So we get to the whitewater rafting trip. We get there, we meet our guide, we get geared up. There are tears visibly streaming down 2 of my kids' face. It's going to be great. We're going to do this. This is going to be the best time. And I promise them, by the end of the trip, you're going to thank me. You're going to thank me that I made you to do this. And they looked at me like I was an insane mom, which maybe I was. So we get on our boat, and we meet our guide, and the boat is a little different. It's a big, if you've ever been whitewater rafting, it's a big inflatable boat. And our guide is sitting on a metal rig with these giant oars in the water. And I'm up front with Nora and Lincoln. Nora and Jackson, and Artie's in back with Lincoln. How confusing is that? I'm in front with Nora and Jackson, Artie's in back with him and Lincoln. And we start going on the river. But before we can get to rapid, the guide has to go through some mandatory instructions. And so she starts. She says, okay, guys, I need you to listen to me, because if you don't listen to me, you are going to die. This is so dangerous. Where the river we're going on has taken lives. We are going to go through rapids, and if you fall out here, there's something called a stringer, and you'll get sucked into the water and you will die. If you fall out here, you're going to get hit underwater rocks that will knock you out, and I won't be able to grab you. You need to stay in the boat. If you get knocked out of she just went on, and it was like, oh no. It was like watching the worst case scenario, and my kids just lost it. This full-on meltdowns, and the guide finally realizes her audience and says, oh, no, it's going to be great. We've never lost anyone. It's going to be awesome. And totally switches it. We start to try to, patch up what just happened. It's going to be great. I'll hang on to you. And they each give each of us an oar. And my kids are like, I am not touching that. I am clinging to my mom. I tried to grab an oar. Won't let me have it. And so we go down the first rapid. And guess what? We survived. It was a shock to my kids. Maybe not to you, but it was a shock to my kids. And when I looked over to my kids after we got through the first rapid, there was a tiny smile, a tiny okay, that was kind of cool. I don't know. And so we keep on going down the river. We go through rapids like Rift Rapper and Widowmaker and Graveyard. And so what you would think, as she's explaining the rapids that we're going down and we go through them, that my kids would get more and more scared and terrified. But the opposite actually started to happen. They started to gain trust in their guide. They started to gain trust that they're going to survive this, and they started to have fun. And the last rapid, I remember Lincoln and Jackson were like, hands up, don't even hold on. And so you knew that they were pretty comfortable. By the end of the trip, what I predicted to happen actually happened. They said, thank you. That was the best part of the vacation. Afterwards, I get a time at the end of the day where we kind of do the highs and lows in our family. We get a circle and before we go to bed, and we kind of talk about the highs of the days and what are the lows of the days. And there was a lot of emotions that day, so I knew we needed to debrief. And we get together, and I started to realize that I needed to talk to him about what just happened. And it was actually a really great metaphor for the life that we are leading as a family. And so we kind of get into it. And I talked to my kids, and I said, hey, how do you think it would have gone if we went down that rapid without a guide? oh, no, we can't go down. Don't ever make us go down without a guide. And I was like, okay, it's clear. Like, it's really dangerous if we would have gone without a guide. We probably may not have even survived it because she was able to get us through the river just the right way. She was able to tell us where the underwater rocks are and where the strainers were. And she told us where we could swim and have fun. We needed our guide. And I told my kids, I go, that's a great example of our life. That's actually a great metaphor because in this life, we are going down a river and it is dangerous. Life is going to take us on turns and rapids and dangerous things that are scary. But we have a guide. We have a guide and his name is Jesus. And the only way that we can get in the boat and to safety and to rescue is to ask for his forgiveness and to accept it through the act of him dying on the cross. And so by doing that, we are in the safest boat possible, this deluxe boat, going down the river, having fun, not having to worry. But we're not all in the boat. And that's why it's so important when mommy, talking to my kids, is giving a lot of her time away from home. Because there are people outside the boat. They're floating down the river and they're hitting rocks and they're going underneath strainers. And they are taking their own life sometimes. And it breaks my heart because that isn't necessary. There's rescue right here. It's so much better in the boat. And so I take my job as a guide very, very seriously. My job is to tell people, there's a boat right here. You can get in. It's great in the boat. It's trying to convince them that to get in the boat. And when they are ready, to pull them in. To say, come on in. Get in here. Give them a cover, a blanket. Just help them get acclimated to what it's like to be in the boat. And so while I was telling this to my kids, I started to cry. And scarred them for life. No big deal. But I think it was actually really important to them that I did cry because they realized that how important it is for me and Artie, that how much of our life we do and give to being a guide, and how thankful I am that somebody pulled me into the boat. Sorry. There's a verse, 1 Thessalonians 2:8, that is really impactful for me, and I think that it tells me why I am a guide. It says, having so fond an affection for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives. Sorry. Because you had become very dear to us. Whew, okay, got it out. So I'm clearly very passionate about this. I take it very seriously being a guide, and it is so great to be here. I love the people that I get to interact with in our house. I love seeing the life change happening. And by putting on a lens of a guide, you get to be a part of that too. And so if you want to do that, I have some suggestions. One, the best part about being a guide, the best way to be a guide is to TikTok between two different things, going out and bringing in. Going out means if you're a guide, you're going out to where you're uncomfortable. You're going to places where the people that you're trying to love on and be with are comfortable. And so we do that here at Crossroads. We have, we don't advertise it because that'd be weird, but we go and hang out at parties. We're at people's houses. We go to bars. We go to performances and theaters and games. We go to where people are at and love them where they're at. We do that because that's where they're comfortable. But there's also the other side of it. We have to bring them somewhere too. We have to bring them to something that expresses the rescue that they can have, a glimpse of the kingdom. And so that's when we bring them to places like church, to service, to outposts, to hang out, to a group, to maybe sharing them digitally online service. We do that, but we have to keep that in mind, that when we do that, when we bring them somewhere that they are uncomfortable, our job is to make that transition as easy as possible, to make that as comfortable as possible, and to keep in mind that they are very uncomfortable. So that's something that you can be doing if you want to put the lens of the guide on. And if you do that, I would just say pray where you are already influential. Where are you already having people that you are guiding that maybe you just need to add some intention around it? And where is some place that you want to take some ground? Where does God need more ground at? And if that's you, if you're like, hey, I want to take more ground at middle school, I would suggest becoming an insider there, somehow belonging there. Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's tutoring, but somehow become someone that belongs in that space. The fourth lens, I should say, that I would put on or suggest to put on, and we have put on, is the lens of an investment banker. Now that sounds a little weird coming from me. I don't like math, and which is awkward, but I do like a return of my investment. We have an investment banker that we give money to, and what we in turn expect is a great return of our investment. We want them to make money for us, right? If they don't, we take the money away and give it to somebody else to make more money off of. That's as basic as I know what's happening here. But when I was in college, I didn't really understand return of investment. And there's really two resources that are really valuable now to me and to all of us here that I don't know if I really valued as much when I was younger. It's my money and my time. So those are two investments that I really want a good return on. And in college, I didn't necessarily care that much. And there's a story that became very crystal clear. When I was in college, I told you I went to design at Miami University. I had a project that was due, and of course, as a college student does, I turned it in I literally had 5 minutes to turn it in. And I lived off campus. It was a giant project. There's no way I could walk it in. And so I did what every Miami student thinks to do: drive it on campus, put your blinkers on, and try to run it in as fast as possible without getting a ticket. Now, if you don't know Miami University, you don't know how amazingly fast and efficient that department is. It's crazy. It's like we need to all learn from them. They know how to get in and grab and ticket you before you even can turn around. I think they work on commission actually, and so I knew that was a possibility when I was going to turn my project in. So I get in. I decide to park right in a loading dock zone, right in front of a dumpster. And I put my blinkers on, and then I'm scoping out the area, making sure there's no hidden ticket people. And there's no one. I'm making sure no one's watching me or anything like that. And then I'm like, okay, I got this. And so I grab my stuff, I run upstairs. I took the stairway, not the elevator, because it'll take faster. Drop it in my classroom, run back down, get to my car, and there's a person standing there. I was like, shoot, how did she do that? I was just gone for literally 5 seconds. It actually wasn't 5 seconds, it was exactly 6 minutes. And I know that because she was writing me a ticket for every minute I was gone. I was like, how are you allowed to do that? You're one ticket, that's all I need. And she's like, you didn't see the sign, did you? And I'm like, what sign? And she moves aside, and there's a sign there that says, ticket of every minute of violation. It was crazy. What I thought was going to be I probably spent maybe $10 on this art project, ended up costing me $610. Very expensive lesson. Thank you, Mom and Dad. What I realized from that is that both my time and my money really do matter to me. And it matters to God too. It matters to God, and I know that because he talks about it in the Bible a lot. In 2 Timothy 2:1-2, Paul is writing to his mentee, Timothy, and he's telling him basically how to have an impact in the place that he's trying to develop a ministry. He says, you then, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. When I look at that verse, I see 4 generations of people that were being built in. 4 generations of investment. And a great return investment. In fact, it's actually an exponential growth model. You see, if I say that in year 1, I'm going to invest in 4 people and really dive into their life, meet with them and help and build them up, guide them. If I just do 4 in 1 year, you would think, well, that's not a really great investment. That's not really a great amount of use of your time. But actually, if you break it out and you do the math, it's a huge ripple that comes out of that. And I've done the math. So in year 1, if I did 4, that'd be 4. By year 7, if those 4 people invest in 4, and the next year and the next year, that's 16,384. That's almost all of Oxford. In year 12, almost all of Ohio. In year 14, almost all of the US. And year 17, it's the entire population of the world. Now, I'm not telling you this because it works. If it worked, we'd all be Christians, right? You can't make someone be Christian, and you can't make them meet with you. 2 things that are just constraints, right? But I am showing you this because faithful, smaller acts do have a ripple in the lives. I know that 2 people really built into me when I was in high school, and I've built into people over the last 20 years. How many people have those people built into? The math proves that faithful investments into people's lives make an impact. And so we've done that here. I'll never have to wonder if my life made a difference because I know that the people that are around me, they say it does. It's a great return of investment of my time. And as long as I'm looking at it in an eternal perspective, that what my life matters most is if I can be a part of people's life change so that more of my friends and my family are with me for eternity. The second thing I do think about is the return of my financial investment. I invest a lot of money here at Crossroads Oxford. And we sacrifice, we give without, and it is fully in a great return on investment because I see the life change, I hear the stories, I know the people of what my money is going towards. And so if I was looking for a return of investment of saying, hey, I'm going to give you this money and I'm going to get it back, no, bad return, right? We do spend our money. But it's a great return, and if you look at eternity and look at people's lives, if you look at what we've done over the last 2.5 years at Crossroads Oxford, do you know that this site is the fastest growing site at the fastest growing church in the nation? That's crazy. God is doing great things here, and it's an excellent return of investment. So what? 4 lenses that have changed my world. Why does that matter to you? Well, I'm hoping that one of those lenses might be good for you. Maybe it's something that can help you solve a problem. Maybe you need to put on the design lens and solve a problem in your life. Maybe there's somebody that you need to guide and then really put some intentionality around that relationship. Maybe you need to think about where your investment of your time and your resources, your finances, all going. And maybe you need to think about how to farm the area that you live, the neighborhood, this community. I'm hoping that helps you. But I also know that we need help. When you came in, you got a form that asked if maybe you wanted to join the team. If by chance during this talk you're like, man, I really want to invest, I want to go further, I want to make my life make an impact, and I'm not sure where to start. One, I say, look where God is moving and go there. It's super simple, right? The first step is just go that direction. But if you are looking for an actual role, we need you. 16,000 students are coming on campus in 2 weeks, and we need guides, coaches, farmers, people that invest here at Crossroads Oxford. The work is huge, and we need you. And it is awesome. It is a great, great investment. But maybe it's not college students. Maybe it's middle school ministry, kids club, high school. We have that too, and we need help. And maybe it's not through Crossroads. Maybe you're a part of something else. Where can you dive into what God's doing and be a part of that? That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much. I'm going to pray for us, and we're going to get going. Lord, thank you so much for today. I pray that if anything I said isn't of you, would you just wipe it from people's minds. And I pray that whatever is of you, that it would stick. I pray that you would inspire us to do something different, something that is a great investment, and that we get a great return because of you, Lord. We love you. We love what you're doing here in Oxford. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. It's in your name. Amen.